Hey everyone, welcome to Dev Interrupted. I'm your host, Dan Lyons, and we are broadcasting live from the DevOps Enterprise Summit. We have two really cool guests with us, Dana and Bryan Finster. Welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome to have you here. We have also a really interesting topic, the rise and fall of DevOps.
Yep,
Very sexy title. I know you gave a talk on it.
we did.
Gave a talk on it. And yeah, let's just start out by introing why did you pick that title, or like where does it even come from?
Would you
We
like
actually
to go?
had a different original title. I think it was The Missing Link. It was kind of a cool title, but didn't really speak to what we were talking about. And after we proposed kind of what we wanted to talk about, had some conversations with some of the IT rev folks, and they kind of suggested we go down a more interesting, more catchy title.
But we're seeing a trend.
Yeah.
Okay. And we've both lived
Oh,
this
yeah.
trend in multiple organizations. We're seeing it elsewhere where even if they define DevOps correctly, where it's not a tool or it's not a team or it's not a role, they define it as improving how the organization delivers.
Yeah.
And they get all this excitement built up and they get better
Yeah.
at delivery and better at delivery. They build out all these good things to get it done. And then complacency sets in. One of those links break. It all falls apart. And you wind up going from, hey, we can release all the time to, hey, it takes 5 days of lead time and 3 levels of cab to get in production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that because we talked before. At least you and I, Bryan. I know you're pretty passionate about getting the definition right, what it is, what it's not.
Mental model.
Why is that so important for you to kind of define it in the way you do? And in the way that you just did is you said what it's not first.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why is
yeah.
that so important?
Well, because if you have the wrong mental model, you apply the wrong things. If you think it's a job, then we have a DevOps team. We've done the DevOps and we're done. And then we've created another silo.
I see.
Or we have DevOps roles, and the DevOps people are the ones doing the DevOps.
Yeah, and DevOps is just unfortunately named. That's really the root problem behind it, right? It's DevOps. It makes people think that it's solely about dev and ops, and it's just not. It's the entire system, and it's been that from the beginning, from Gene Kim back in the Phoenix project with systems thinking.
Yeah.
But people focus in on those two little words, dev and ops,
Right.
and makes it hard because everyone kind of has different definitions.
It's probably because it's kind of like nifty to say, like, okay, DevOps. I can
Yep.
say
You
it
want
really.
to hear a funny story?
Sure.
So we're at DevOps Days Dallas. We're at the speakers dinner
Yeah.
with Patrick Dubois.
Yeah.
And we talk about the term DevOps. You want to know why it's called DevOps?
Why is it?
Because Patrick called it that.
Yeah.
Right. And the reason why is because he was starting a conference to talk about these sorts of things. And he wanted a fun acronym that came out to mean dead on delivery.
Interesting.
And it's days. So I've got the last D.
Yeah.
What should I do? DevOps. We'll just do DevOps. And
Yeah.
so the original was hashtag DevOps days because fun, dead on delivery. And then it got shortened to DevOps. And now it's been completely mangled to be a DevOps team or DevOps tools.
Well, I mean, it may be even worse if I'm getting kind of both of your philosophy on this. You have people that say, like, I am DevOps. I'm a DevOps.
I'm a DevOps
person. That's my title.
DevOps
so
engineer.
then it's just like one person or like a silo of people.
And do terrible things like building pipelines for people. It's not a job that should even happen. But so Donovan Brown has the best definition: the union of people, process, and product to enable the continuous delivery of value to our end users. It's all of everything.
Yeah.
I was at the Flowtopia earlier this week, and somebody said, that value stream management's an extension of DevOps. Like, no, it's not. It's always been about value stream improvement from day one. And it's none of those things.
Yeah. Well, it's great that we kind of get the right definition. And if we go back to kind of the original title, the rise and fall of DevOps.
Yep.
Where do we begin? Do we start with these different links, or like how do you want to break it down for us here?
Well, I think the crux of what we're really trying to say is that not that DevOps has fallen and nobody should be doing DevOps, but that to be successful, it's very fragile. And so you need to be able to sustain what we've come up with and are calling the DevOps tool chain, right? You think DevOps tool chain, you start thinking build tools, deploy tools,
Yeah.
and it's not that. It's a lot more than that. So what we're kind of proposed with this talk is that there's these links that kind of form a chain because they're interrelated, and every single one of them is important. If one of these links starts to break, if it's even weak, or if it's never built up, we've seen pretty much there's like no chance for success. So I'm just gonna put it that way, right? You have to have all of them. They
Could even
build
be
on
worse
each
than
other
starting.
and they work together.
That's scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the links
So
are mission, structure, or topology. We wanted something shorter to say.
Yeah.
Structure, ownership, platform, learning, and trust. And we've seen many examples of one or more of those links breaking, and things get bad quick.
Well, I mean, just listening to how you describe it, right? So there's 6 links. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And if one of them breaks, we're kind of in trouble.
No.
So, okay. No, we're not. So one of them can break it and we're okay.
No, it's not like, we got 5 links, we're okay. No. You break a link and you don't get it fixed fast, you will fail fast.
Gotcha. And so, that sounds like, you tell me, but a fairly difficult task to keep them all healthy going at the same time, or how do you think about that? Yeah.
What you have to do is you have to listen to all these people talking about these critical things, and you have to take them seriously. When people talk about generative culture, that's not some touchy-feely thing that, maybe eventually we'll get around to.
Yeah.
It's the thing that allows you to have a shared mission, ownership, and trust. And if I don't trust you, then I won't tell you about problems, and you will have a security breach, right? Yeah. And
Worst
you don't
case.
want that.
Yeah.
So you need to be pragmatic as a leader and build a generative culture so that your business is safe.
You know what I would love to do? I think what we need to do, if we could go link by link,
Sure,
in the order that the two of you want to go, and for each link, what I would love to hear is, what are some of the core principles of doing it right, how to do it right, but also, if you have it, what are the pitfalls? How could it go? Like when it breaks, where does it break?
Yeah.
So if we could go one by one, that would be like amazing.
Okay, so mission.
Okay.
You need a real mission, all right? And a good mission should be focused on business value, improving business value. It should inspire action where everybody in the organization goes, oh, I believe in that mission. We're going to do this, right? Yeah. Like, the mission that I really align to is making every developer's life better. Okay.
Yeah, that's
not business focused, but that's my personal mission, right?
Yeah.
And let's make every developer's life better. At the previous organization, we had a mission around, we want to be able to deliver business value every single day versus once a quarter. That's business focused and improves value delivery, but it also is a mission where people could grab onto it and said, this is a hard problem.
Yeah.
We need to solve this problem.
There's a time limit to that mission, like daily, you're saying.
It's like, how do we fix everything around us so that we can continuously deliver value?
Okay, so within mission, I love it because like I usually have to think because days get hard, things get tough. So like you have to go back to, wait, why am I doing this again?
What's the mission?
Do I want to put in, the extra time? Do I want to where does it break down on the mission link?
When you get really crappy missions.
Yeah.
Some of my favorite crappy missions that I've personally witnessed, improved DORA metrics.
Yeah.
0 defects is one of my favorites. Yeah, I just can't get behind that. Why?
Yeah, it's like too hollow.
Yeah, well, the improved DORA metrics, okay. I mean, I can do that, but why? And then 0 defects is unobtainable anyway, so why are you giving me a mission that can't be done?
Yeah, like unattainable.
Yeah, with the DORA metrics, it's a case of the DORA metrics aren't the goal. There are goals that you can have and missions you can have that will have you achieve good outcomes, and those DORA metrics will be good, but
Yeah.
they're not the mission.
Yeah, they're not the mission.
Yeah, they're
It's
health
not-
indicators
they're-
towards the
they're
mission.
describing
Yeah.
something. They're not the
Exactly.
mission. Do you think good missions usually really like, because you said, Bryan, for yours, the one that you get most inspired by relates back to a human, in this case, developers, right? You said,
Well, you
do
know,
you like apply it to human, or like what are any
It
tips
helps
on
people.
setting a good,
the only reason we exist is to make our end users' lives better.
Yeah.
Why else are we doing
Yeah.
this? Right. And so you need to tie it to that. You know, in our talk, I related it to Kennedy saying, you know, we choose to go to the moon. And the reason why we go to the moon isn't to beat the Russians to the moon. It's because it brings out the best of and measures us against what good looks like, basically, right? And it elevates us to choose these hard missions.
Okay, so second link is
The second link is structure, which is, you know, basically once you have a mission, you know, even if it's a really good, solid mission, unless you have the organizational, the team, the communication structures that support the ability to drive toward that mission, it doesn't matter, right? So, you know, yesterday we talked a lot about, you know, really the communication structure, kind of Conway's law, the flow of information, and how it's really important to make sure that the structure is there, and that it's deliberate, because you can have, if it's not deliberate, then it's going to be accidental, and you end up with, in, you know, same way. Therefore, your architecture is either going to be deliberate or accidental.
We literally had a picture of a plate of spaghetti.
Yeah.
yeah.
And you
Yeah.
can't sustain accidental, and you can't drive forward with it because it's accidental. Where are you going? You know, how do you push it forward? So the key there is to always be extremely deliberate about the way that you're structuring organizations, and the ways to break that one. You know, I think we lovingly say how to screw it up. You know, you can
Yeah.
really screw it up. You know, with siloed teams, with featured teams that can never really get ownership or really understand what the overall goals of the product are. They're just, okay, we'll code this thing. That all just creates kind of an unsustainable mess, or you know, HR driven kind of silos that just have handoffs and high overhead that's going to hold you back. Those are all good ways to kill that one.
This one feels tough to me, or at least when I'm trying to think of it mentally, of what's a good structure. You know, you gave some points on what a bad structure looks like, and that makes sense to me. But what's like the feeling or behavior, or like how do you know if you have a good structure going?
Oh, that's a hard one. You know, in my experience, having, I do think that I do agree, structure is one of the hardest things to change, because you have an organization that is set up a certain way. And in order to change that, you know, you're talking about changes in the way maybe even HR does things. You're not limited to just tech. You might be talking, you know, changes in what the business expects, or even how it's structured.
Yeah.
So it definitely is hard. We talk about the ways to build it up to, you know, make sure that you're aligned. You know, we've heard a lot throughout this whole conference on value streams, about getting a kind of a solid flow of related product teams together and focusing on, you know, individual, decoupled, independently deployable things, and then kind of build it up through the chain that way, and keep that focus, that domain focus.
With platform teams to elevate them.
And that's the third link.
Well, the third link is actually
Or,
ownership.
no, yeah, that's the
Yeah,
fourth.
but it plays into that, because
Mhm.
you know, when you get into ownership, you also talk about another big misunderstanding of DevOps, which drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to talk about ownership?
Yeah.
Or do you want?
Yeah, let's talk about. I had one thought, and
Go
then we
ahead.
can. So ownership's the third one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, one thought. I wish I could have like with the structure, like ask these 3 questions to the people on the team. If they answer it this way, it means that you have a good structure. If they answer it another way, it means that you have a bad, like, do you,
Well, I mean, I
it'd
can
be
give you an
cool if there's like a
example.
little litmus test so that
Well,
could tell you, okay, yeah, things are off.
I can
or
give you an
things are good.
example
Yeah.
of a really effective, good structure in an organization I worked in. Is we had a giant, entangled, monolithic, terrible thing because we had a whole bunch of HR teams of like 400 developers total, broken up into teams that were sized for a manager, all delivering features against this giant monolith with no thought to the domains.
That's rough.
We re-architected around business capabilities, aligned teams to the business capabilities, made sure we were focusing on the interfaces between those teams, using domain-driven design to ensure that we didn't have weird dependencies between teams. And then we built a small platform team to deliver the delivery platform team that those teams were going to use. It was very, very effective at allowing those teams to rapidly deliver features, also in concert, but independently, or independently entirely, depending what the feature was. But they had ownership of that business capability. They understood that business, that piece of the business very well.
So let's move to ownership. Or do you want to put
Well, to answer your question, I think at least one question to kind of start down that line is to ask a team, how long does it take you to get 1 day's worth of code to production? Because that starts uncovering where there's handoffs and where there's too many dependencies and what's slowing you down.
That's a good one. Because if they would say 15 minutes, you would say, oh, okay, if they would say, I have no idea.
That's a sign of another problem.
That's someone else's.
That's the release team's job.
You're like, okay, so we're on the other end of the spectrum. Or they might say, it takes us 5 days. Okay, well, maybe you would say, okay, there's an us component to that, but the time is a little rough. So, something like that. Let's move to ownership, because that kind of, it seems like it leads now to there. Yeah.
Yeah, I've always ranted about this thing where people hold teams accountable.
You ranting?
I don't know. I know it's an occasional thing.
Surprising, right?
This is shocking.
Yeah, but you don't get quality from holding teams accountable to timelines. You get quality from giving teams ownership. And there's a way to get that wrong is teams are saying, well, we have ownership of everything, so we can just go and do whatever mission we think is the right mission to go do based off of the broader organizational goals. No, I need you to accomplish this mission. I'm giving you the mission, your piece of the mission. You own how you deliver that mission. You own the decisions. You own the consequences of your decisions. So if you could decide that you're going to build it with 5 different languages because it's cool, but you're also going to have operational support. So you own the consequences of that much cognitive load. You decide not to test, you're going to get woken up because you shipped crappy stuff. You're not going to throw it over the wall for somebody else to own your consequences. So the ownership means full ownership, which is good or bad depending on how you accept that ownership.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing that drives me crazy, there's an article that came out recently that's DevOps, devs don't want to do ops. Now, they used 3 different definitions of ops in that article, which is really fun. But one of the reasons that they said was that, the devs don't, they're tired of owning the platform tools. Okay, leaders, DevOps doesn't mean that they own infrastructure. That's not what it means. You have platform teams that make it easy for them to deliver.
Yeah.
Right? It's not they own run what you brung. Doesn't mean I own everything. It means I own the outcomes of my decisions.
Yeah. But you still get some support from platform engineer.
No. You get platform as a service, right? Not platform as a ticket.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So it totally makes sense the way you describe it. Yeah. And then I'm saying to myself, okay, are all teams ready for that level of ownership? That comes to mind.
The terrifying thing.
They'll find out quickly if they're not.
They will find out. But when I started in this industry, that's just the way we work.
Oh yeah, that everything was like that.
Yeah, and it's
did you have the platform as a service? Probably not in the same way we would describe it now.
No. I mean, we had actually, I was the DBA. The platform was FTP.
Yeah.
and
So-
I FTP'd to the to the production system, the binary built on my machine.
yeah.
FTP'd it to the production system. I mean, it was the late
Yeah.
90s. So,
But I do think so yeah, you have like the are you ready to own it? And then the other thing that comes to mind, you said like platform as a service, but I use the word supporting, didn't mean like a support ticket. But
Right.
you do have, if you do have like, I'm just gonna call it a nice infrastructure surrounding you.
Yeah.
You have like, I think that makes it
You're-
easier to own now.
yes.
And this is where really when in the beginning you're talking about the 6 links and do you need them all and how do you
Yeah.
start them? They all rely on each other. You have to bring them all up together because you can own it when you have the platform, when you have the structure, and when you're all on the same mission to do something, right?
And that
they're
sounds scary,
all
though.
interrelated.
That sounds scary. And my wife and I gave a talk about platform as a product a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And someone said, how big do you have to be before you start thinking about having a platform team? I said, well, when we started, we had 2 product teams and a platform team. So I think that's about the right size. The platform team consisted of about 3 people.
Yeah.
Who were helping us by coming up with common templated patterns for Jenkins, because that's what we had, and getting feedback from us.
Yeah.
But they treated us as customers and said, hey, here, we're going to build a tool, use it the way we tell you. No. We collaborated on that and organically grew the capability together. On ownership, teams want ownership. But until the pager comes off and it goes off and they figure out that they don't test very well, and then they adjust.
Yeah, then it sucks.
It sucks for a
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
But that's the back pressure on quality. It's not the tests. It's you test. Production's the test for tests. Right.
Yep. So 3rd link was ownership. 4th is now
Is
platform. Cool.
Right. Because
Yeah.
teams don't own platforms.
Yep.
Product teams don't own platforms. Platform product teams own platforms.
Yep. I think this is where, at least in my experience, a lot of orgs maybe get it wrong, or
Mostly
or I
wrong.
would just say, maybe it's just like getting the right people on the platform team, or getting the right mission of the platform team, or like what are you really here to do? How do you interact with these customers that are actually like developer peers?
This is something that's incredibly important to me because we did it very well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I once worked for a very large organization with a visionary who started a global platform to bring in all the fragmented federated platforms into one. And he had deep experience on building open source products that people use daily in the industry.
Mhm.
Okay.
Good background.
Good background. He found infrastructure engineers, senior engineers in infrastructure. He pulled people like me in from product teams and made us the product owners of discrete capabilities within the platform.
Mhm.
The expectation was, as we knew who our customers were because we were talking to them, finding out what their problems were, and figuring out how we can help solve those problems as a team. The initiative we worked on, the mission, was called Irresistible Developer Experience.
Mm-hmm.
We had to do it at scale with a small budget. And we did all of those things super well. And it was my first experience with that sort of global platform. And then I leave that organization, I start talking to other people. Most people are doing it entirely wrong. They look at it as tools that they inflict on the development teams.
Yeah.
It's a white gloves operation where they have the DevOps building pipelines instead of supplying tools so the teams can own their pipeline configurations, which is their main quality tool, is the pipeline. I have to open a ticket to improve my quality. That kind of sucks, right? And so they're doing it wrong a lot.
Yeah, I think what you get when you don't do it right and really treat it as a first class product, you get the DevOps team.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I feel like we could do a pod just on that topic,
Oh, yeah.
actually.
we gave a talk.
How many hours do you have?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I would love to do that because I think a lot of companies they're hearing and they kind of recognize, okay, I need this like platform engineering team. Don't know where to start.
It starts with product ownership and identifying what the core problems are that your platform needs to solve. and then doing it with a defined scope so you don't crush yourself under your own weight by growing and trying to solve all problems.
Yep.
Yep. And not a group of people who write pipelines for the developers.
Awesome. Moving us to the next link. So we have the platform. So that was 4, I think.
Yeah.
The 5th is
Learning.
Yeah. Because, I mean, to do all of it, but especially, when you build up this pipeline and you're going to build something that hopefully supports continuous integration, supports the whole delivering faster that you're trying to get to. But just handing someone a pipeline and saying, continue as you are, now throw your stuff down, just hit a button, is not going to be very successful if they don't understand that they better have some automated testing. They better have some, there may need to be some things that need to change.
I see.
So
But
DevOps is really, really hard because it really is. We talk about the transformation, right?
Yeah,
And
I hear that
and
at this conference all the time.
transformation. What does it mean? It means to change the way we think. And
Yeah.
there's like 2 definitions if you look it up in the dictionary: change the way we think, or a holistic change to the way of thinking. So, that brings to mind 2 things. First of all, if we're doing something new, we need to be able to learn. But the biggest blocker to learning is not first unlearning the old ways. It's really hard to make a true mindset shift and really learn until you have the ability to kind of set aside, well, we did it well, that we've always done it this way. We've always been successful this way. We have some new things to add on there. Okay, well, they might not be compatible with the old things. So being able to kind of let go of that and think of things in a whole new way is a huge part of successfully learning.
Dana, is it in the Phoenix project where they talk about the ERP systems coming out and everybody just used the ERP systems to do their old manual process for planning production? And then Black & Decker figured out that they could run production runs daily, projections daily or weekly instead of every quarter. And that was a gain because that was a platform, right? And platforms enable new capabilities. And so it's not just a warning of, okay, you've just handed a race car to some people who don't know how to drive. Good luck. But it's also, there's other things we can do, and I spoke earlier, like I said, I spoke earlier this week at a value stream management event. And I came up from the perspective of, we were trying to solve the problem of continuous delivery. And when you start solving those problems, you find out quickly that we've solved all the problems at the team level, and the external stuff outside the team's all broken. Now you're talking value streams. How do we align all those? And that's learning, and everybody around. It's not just the developers learning how to test better.
Yeah.
It's leaders learning how to organize better. It's everything.
Yeah.
That
seems like it kind of bubbles up then.
It does
okay,
all
now
the
we
way.
have this new capability.
Yeah.
We're moving fast, deploying, whatever. Oh, now that, what's it going to impact? What's it going to impact? What's it? But
you can't leave your experts and your leaders behind and say, well, they're leading and they're experts because they already know these things. You have to really focus on also retraining them.
And you have to retrain teams work differently. So you have to look at the team level. There's enterprise dojos do that in a lot of the big companies now.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a training the entire team on different ways of working as a team. Just like when you go to advanced infantry training, you're not training individual soldiers. You're training squads, how to operate as a squad.
Yeah. Totally makes sense.
And learning to learn from the problems. We have problems before DevOps. We're going to continue to have them with it. And as long as we're learning from those continuously, then
but there's a link that's the link required for us to learn from that and have blameless postmortems.
Yeah.
Which one's that?
Part of learning. That's how you get your learning feedback.
But there's a dependency there with trust. Because if I don't trust you, we're not going to have a blameless postmortem.
And that's the final link.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, so tell us about trust and what that is all about, and what are some of the pitfalls there.
Okay, you want me to start this one?
Go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. So I gotta say, this conference has been super exciting, and the fact that Gene was able to bring Dr. Ron Westrom in and to give a talk. We actually just got out of a Q&A there, but Trust is super important. And his research on the cultures and the particularly generative culture, it just really plays into this. There are environments that you really feel no trust, you feel fear, and it's extremely detrimental. The generative culture that really focuses in on the mission and the goals is the key. It's a huge key. You hear all the time from, the acronym columns, culture, but it's really about trust. The culture piece of it is really about trust, and building that generative culture and focusing on a mission, building that so that everyone's focused on doing what needs to be done to achieve the mission, helps to allow people to kind of put aside some of those personal fears and personal, you know, it's about the mission. It's
Yeah.
not about me. It's about the mission. Really helps to build the trust throughout the organization.
So everybody remembers Equifax, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've had one-on-one conversations with people, with somebody who was there for the breach and also put in a position to help clean up after. And you could have predicted that breach from the culture. One of the things, I'm very pragmatic. My focus is how do we deliver better value, and have happier teams while we do it. Generative culture is not some touchy-feely thing that you should think about. Yeah, I read about it once, but that we're focusing on delivery. We don't have time for this generative culture crap. Generative culture keeps you safe. And if you don't have it, you need to build it. Because if I'm a developer and I don't trust that I'm not going to get punished for making an error, I won't make any errors. I promise you I will make no errors. And you're at risk. I'm not going to tell you about vulnerabilities we have because you might punish me. And we're at risk.
Yeah.
Our customers at risk. Everybody's at risk. So trust is important from the point of view of getting better, but it's also incredibly important for staying safe. Right? It's foundational to everything. You will fail immediately if you destroy trust.
This one is another one that seems very difficult, especially if you're like, when I hear going through a transformation, it's like we were acting one way, now we're trying to act a different way, essentially. How do you take like a step towards trust? Do you have any advice on like the first thing to do?
Give teams ownership.
Yeah.
Tell them about a good mission we're going to be on. That's not a BS mission.
Yeah.
That the mission
Aligned
everybody
to the
can
mission.
believe
It
in,
really-
aligned to the mission.
It does circle back around to the first link. Align on the mission so that
Now it all makes
you
sense.
have-
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a chain. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all, like I said, you break the chain, it all falls apart.
Yeah. And I can believe in that because
Well, but there's
go
one
ahead.
thing. Trust is
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if trust is one of those things where if you're not working on it daily, you lose trust.
it is the most fragile link.
Yeah, my comment there was going to be, I'm trying to think if I could trust you, it's if I believe that you believe in the same mission as me. So if I believe that you believe in this mission, then I trust in my experience that you're going to be all of your decisions, your intent is all around achieving that
The mission. And not
Exactly.
so therefore I can trust you. Even if I don't always know exactly what you're doing, I don't have to. I know it's for the mission. And
So,
I think that's,
I have a story
regardless
about-
of DevOps or whatever, that's more of like a human thing.
No, I've got a good
Yeah.
story about
Yeah.
this. So I was in an organization once where they took all of the tech leads in the area and put them on one team and called it the design team. It's huge anti-pattern. And we were all very experienced developers with a long history in that area. 10 more years in that area. Okay. And we had to be effective. We'd never worked together before. So we just had a working agreement. We're going to trust we're all on the same mission to try to make all of this stuff better because it's all broken. We want to make it better. So we're going to trust each other on that. We're going to operate by consensus. If we make a decision and I disagree with it, I will support the decision because we're all on the same mission. It's not about each one of us. It's about us succeeding in the mission. We were very effective at doing that. We disagreed all the time.
Yeah.
But we supported each other.
Awesome.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was intentional trust. because otherwise it would have just been squabbling all the time, because before we were the tech leads, right? And now
Gotcha.
we had no power.
Yeah. Well, this has been super informative. Thank you both for coming on. I learned a bunch. I know our listeners totally have and will. And I would love to follow up with a platform engineering pod. So, Dana and Bryan, thanks for
Do we have
coming on
time for
today.
one last kind of
Yeah, we do.
just one liner
Close
here
it up
for you?
us. Yeah, absolutely.
And back to you said,
Yeah.
how do you get started, right? We said we
Yeah.
need all the links. Well, that sounds really hard. And the key really is, when you first build them, you need them all. But think of it like, one of those little paper chains that you make out of construction paper,
Yeah.
right? And you get it there, and then you just start forging it until they're made of iron and much harder to break.
That's a great, I was just imagining that in my head. That's a perfect symbol. Yeah. So again, thank you so much for coming on the pod today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks so much for having us.